It was lonely being nothing. Let's go back to the beginning. Before matter, before energy, before the Big Bang, before creation, before time, before logic. We can't approach this point by rewinding an infinite series of ever-vanishing moments. God had to create time along with everything else. We shouldn't think about the beginning in terms of causation, but instead self-identification. Instead of searching for a first cause, we must seek a first self, the ground and source of all being. And to understand such a being as negation, we must imagine the cosmos stripped of its identity. Creation is genuinely ex nihilo, out of nothing, zero, the holy nothingness. Yet within this zero is an infinity, an infinite expansive potential consisting not of matter or energy, but future realities, possible futures, everything that is, was, or could be existing together in a single thought. And then this thought explodes, the will to be something more than nothing, the possible identity reality could create for itself, the potential for true and good order to emerge in the universe, tantalizes the closed grammar already identified with the language that will create the life of the cosmos to give up its purity and invariance for the chance of something greater. The life of galaxies, star systems, the first trace of life on Earth, at first microbes and amoebas, and finally that supreme and gorgeously fallen creature, man. The sun's rising and setting, crying out to its creator, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is filled with his glory." A will to be something rather than everything. A will to be something more than everything. The thought takes the leap and immerses itself in the life of the universe, the unfolding of the creative drama of the cosmos. The order that is good flies forth from the primordial abyss, foaming forth to God his own infinitude. Blessed is the glory of the Lord from his place. Welcome to the cognitive, theoretic model of the universe, the CTMU. Instead of trying to induce perception and cognition from a material and mechanical universe, the CTMU induces an orderly universe from perception and cognition. The logos, the divine order and creative reason in the cosmos, is truthful perception manifested in the universe. The logos, the identity of reality, creates a universe so that every being can stably interact with the universe across iterations and lifetimes and derive value and meaning from it. Reality builds itself to take our needs into account and satisfy them. The global utility, the value and meaning of the universe as a whole, is a sum of all the secondary utilities of each observer participant, like human beings, across time. The famed physicist John Wheeler meant this when he said, "We live in a participatory universe." In his 1980 paper, Beyond the Black Hole, Wheeler observes, "Physics gives rise to observer participancy gives rise to information, and in turn, information gives rise to physics." The participatory universe is how reality is structured. It injects its being into observer participants, like humans, who are microcosms of reality as a whole, and allows them to participate in the creation and evolution of the universe by discovering which ways to configure itself are the most valuable to reality's goal, which is to identify the true and good order willed by the conscious life in and of the universe, and to build an identity for itself by which it can extend and refine its being. And reality wants to achieve this goal as efficiently as possible. How does it do this? Through a process the CTMU calls Tele recursion. In his 2002 paper, The Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe, a New Kind of Reality Theory, Langan says, "Tele recursion is a fundamental process that tends to maximize a cosmic self-selection parameter, generalized utility, over a set of possible syntax-state relationships in light of the self-configurative freedom of the universe. Out of chaos and disorder, how do we reach cosmos in order? How do we achieve the fantastic complexity we see in our universe from the primordial formless void? Reality configures itself using telic recursion, which means purposeful self-calling, which reality intelligently calls on its own structure and syntax to actualize a goal or end. Telic recursion evolves towards teleology. Teleology comes from the word telos, which means purpose or end. Teleology is the idea that the universe has an intrinsic purpose, an end, which explains its existence and guides its evolution. Teleology means we can explain the inner structure of the cosmos, not in terms of the cause by which they arise, but instead the purpose they serve. At a universe's level, why and how are identical theories. You can think of Tele recursion as a two-stage system, a process and a goal. I go to the drive-thru. Why did I do it? Because I want a hamburger. It's this intention which is configuring my actions. The goal is to satisfy my hunger, and the process is going to the restaurant and ordering food. I go for a run. Maybe it's because I want to work off that hamburger, but more generally, it's about health. The process is exercising, and the goal is health and long life. Apply this to reality as a whole. Its goal is intrinsic, self-identification. Its process is the unfolding of the life of the universe. The ultimate meaning of everything can't be found in anything external to reality. It is forever to be found in its own self-evolution. Evolution of both life and the cosmos exists to maximize this teleology, each evolving by self-replication and self-selection towards the intrinsic goal they strive to achieve. In Coronius Focus, a YouTuber who creates videos on mythology, natural selection, and metaphysics, in his video on the CTMU, he shows that the thesis of biological and cosmic history is that the maximum fitness achieved by natural selection and telic recursion, nucleating the material resources it has at its disposal to create star systems, biological life, and more, leads to something approximating the logos, which is the intrinsic reason and purpose of the universe. One way you can think about it is that telic recursion instantiates the logos, God's design, over time. Life is choosing and creating logos, and logos is choosing and creating life. There's a self-duality between syntax, the rules of the universe, and state, how the universe currently exists, where each calls the other towards more excellent utility, which is how the universe evolves, through hological, meaning the whole is in every part, self-replication, and self-selection. Everything that is, was, or could be is embedded in every part of the universe, informing its continued evolution. The first and most fundamental principle of the CTMU is the metaphysical autology principle, or MAP for short. The MAP says that there's nothing external to reality by which it could define itself, which means reality has to be self-configuring, self-creating, self-processing, and self-sustaining. We are microcosms of reality. The CTMU incorporates a concept called distributed solipsism, in which each of us is an image of the entirety of reality. To the question, why am I me and not everyone or anyone else? CTMU answers, every human being is related in profound ways which we cannot discern on this plane of existence. We all share one fundamental identity, but we're given an interface, each of us, to interact with reality and participate in its creation. The self-containment property of reality implies the distribution of said property over all real observers. Chris Langan explains, God is deciding which parts of himself he wants to keep, and this universe is one of his ways of doing that. We inherit the self-generative freedom of reality, which means we have free will. Nothing is hovering above us, compelling us to act in a particular way. We live in a participatory universe, again, where if we follow the intrinsic purpose and moral law of the universe, reality takes the information from our cognition and perception and uses our metaphysical substance to define, reinforce, and extend its being. This is the purpose of the universe. Many scientists believe it is possible that a universe without life could have emerged. Without life, there would be no value to the universe's existence or information gained thereby, and it would not exist. Life and the universe evolve in coupling. Each creates the other, like the twin serpents of the yin and yang. Chris Langan says, reality is a language that talks to itself, about itself, for its own purposes. Reality's intrinsic language is called the scspl, self-processing, self-configuring language, which is a language not spoken or written, but embedded in the structure of reality itself, which describes reality and creates the reality it describes. The fundamental unit of the universe is not matter or energy, but syntactic operators, which can transform the global language of reality, capable of emulating quantum particles and eventually far more complex structures, creating together biological life and the galaxies according to the self-directed evolution of scspl through telic recursion. scspl is a language that talks to itself, about itself, for its own purposes. It is reality. It is the logos. In his 2000 paper on the CTMU, Chris Langan says that the CTMU says that just as minds are real, reality is also like a mind, a generalized cognition. This makes sense. Our consciousness is the only way to encounter reality. Physical space exists only as a representation in each of our minds. Experience and being are so intertwined as to be one and the same. We are made in the image of this universal mind. When we ask, whose mind? The answer turns out to be a precise mathematical and scientific definition of God, the global operator descriptor, or GOD, of the scspl reality self-simulation. The objective reality which many people can exist within and agree upon is created through the self-simulation of universal mind for its observer participants. Chris Langan says, our individual minds are parts of God's mind, directly connected to the greatest source of knowledge and power that exists. SCSPL dissolves the distinction between theory, model, and universe, replacing each with the abstract, transitional, and concrete aspects of corporeal existence. The CTMU, a rigorous logico-mathematical explanation of the totality of existence, is called a reflexively self-generating, self-modeling theory of reality, identical to its universe on the syntactic level. It is its own theory, model, and universe. It is the cognitive, theoretic model of the universe. Cognition, theory, model, universe. It could just as well be called the theological or teleological theoretic model of the universe because it shows that there is a personal God, an intrinsic purpose of the universe according to his will. SCSPL dissolves all categories of space and time. There's a duality of time. Just like ordinary causation flows from past to future, a meta-causation distributes programming from future reality. It generates a timeline into the space of infinite expansive potential, which has not yet been realized under the guidance of a telon, potential state of high utility for one or more tellers, meaning something which is of value to the GOD, to human beings, etc., which is configuring present reality to come into existence. Reality doesn't just respond to the laws of physics or the laws of nature, but intelligently configures itself to respond to its intrinsic need for self-fulfillment. The laws of physics and nature are responses to the state syntax duality and evolution, which creates fixed laws that allow for God's teleology to be fulfilled. Everything, everywhere is the terminal representation of God's will and wisdom. As Prophet Isaiah says in Isaiah 45:18, God did not create the earth as a desolation, but formed it for habitation, a place where we could live. The anthropic principle of the physical sciences, which observes that the universe appears fine-tuned for the emergence of biological life, gives way to the far more advanced telic principle in CTMU. It is the Creator's will that everything that is valuable to exist and can exist does exist. This is the best of all possible worlds because it is structured according to the GOD's teleology and the universe's intrinsic moral law. In the CTMU, time and space transform into design and actualization, respectively. At each interval of space-time, time can be treated like a fourth spatial dimension. Chris Langan says we interface with space and time through a series of states. It never exists in some abstract, disembodied physical space, but in our conscious perception and the mind of the global operator descriptor. Space is what is currently being represented in the SCSPL reality self-simulation. The will, and time is the state transition syntax, the will of the GOD, and the combined intention of its participants, which will create the next state. As John Wheeler once quipped, time keeps everything from happening all at once. By comporting with not only the space-time object syntax in our minds, by which we can recognize physical extension in the universe, but also our conscious experience in the structure of our memory and cognition, time provides a user interface whereby secondary tellers can interact with the reality self-simulation, make decisions, and derive meaning and value from it. Instead of the ordinary space-time manifold, the CTMU brings to bear a conspansive manifold, a mathematical structure that represents the fundamental nature of reality as it evolves over time. It is a multidimensional space that encompasses all possible states of the universe. The dynamics of the manifold determine the evolution of the universe. The conspansive manifold generates the ever-changing structure of reality through a two-step process called Conspansion, consisting of inner expansion and requantization. It internally rescales by interfacing with a set of all possible future realities, called the non-terminal domain in the CTMU, and then creates a new state formed within the image of the previous state. Reality creates itself anew at every moment to transition to its next state. Reality seamlessly switches between state and state transition, the display and programming of the reality self-simulation. Reality expands to interface with everything that could exist, and then requantizes to align with the information that the state transition syntax has given. Because the universe is a self-contained, self-processing, closed identity operator, and each state is created within the image of its previous one, replacing movement and expansion with free scaling, and is defined by nothing external to itself. There is no analytical difference between the expansion of the universe and the contraction of its contents. Although there is a positive cosmological constant, meaning the contents of reality are negatively rescaling or getting smaller relative to their medium, the CTMU denies the current physicalist model of the expanding rubber sheet universe, where the universe is expanding into some nebulous embedded external space. Nothing external to the real universe is real enough to affect it, or else it would be included within the universe. If the universe has a background, which it does because physical expansion is a valid observation, it must be intrinsic. The CTMU affirms the converse of the ERSU, the USRE, the universe as a self-representational entity with an intrinsic background, the conspansive manifold in which it rescales and evolves. In his 2002 paper, The Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe, a New Kind of Reality Theory, Chris Langan says, conspansive space-time provides a distributed mechanism for intelligent design. The CTMU Hology principle says that reality's global syntax must exist at every point in space and time. Langan says the CTMU, quote, make cosmogony, the creation of the universe, a distributed, coherent, and ongoing event, rather than a spent and discarded moment from the ancient history of the cosmos. At every place and in every moment, the universe is in the process of creating and refining itself, which is its essential imperative. Reality's teleological evolution and intelligent design can generate absurd information and complexity over time, the life of the universe unfolding according to the will and wisdom of the Creator. The rational proof of intelligent design ends the paradoxes associated with random mutation and selection, which academic scientists usually give as explanations for the absurd complexity of biological life in the celestial bodies, by asserting that not only these impressive evolutionary states are the result of the intelligent design of conspansive spacetime, but also the physical laws by which they arise. In the CTMU, laws and states co-evolve by recursive cross-definition to lead to the greatest expression of teleology over time. In his 2000 paper on absolute truth and knowledge, Chris Langan says, because the universe is everywhere in the process of self-creation, human knowledge can and must continue to grow. The CTMU is intended not as a brittle, undersized pot that will root bind and choke this growing knowledge, but as fertile and well-aerated soil through which it can spread. By its very design, the CTMU will continue to accommodate and accelerate our intellectual progress, and since no other theory fully shares its design, it is irreplaceable for that purpose. In his 1992 paper, The Mathematical and Metaphysical Bases of Choice, Purpose, and Free Will, Chris Langan writes, the universe has now been solved. We are among the angels and demons who, by leave of God, shape reality for good and evil through cognition and telesis, mind and will. I show you this for love of self, that you may save yourselves and each other. And I tell you this, there are none so blind as those who will not see, nor so lame as those who will not stand. Let the light shine forth in the darkness. May the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you. Like and subscribe. Peace.